mentioned. Let me know if any questions come up. Um, so yeah, we're talking about keyboard interaction today, and this is very similar to some stuff that we've done in the past with environment variables and interaction. It's kind of similar to like mouse pressed and things like that, but we're going to be using the keyboard instead. So you should recognize a lot of the same stuff that we've used before, just looking at the keyboard instead of the mouse. Um, so, like our mouse events, we have key events and environment variables, and we can look at those to make decisions or do events based on uh, functions or Boolean logic. So we're going to look at key is pressed first. I'm going to open up a new P5 window to demo this. Um, let's see. I'll just start a new window here and say keyboard, and it's fall 2022. So keyboard interaction demo. Let's see, 11/21/2022. And so let's also open up our reference. So I'm going to go to help and go to reference. And um, oh, this is kind of weird. I wonder if this is because oh, did I zoom in or something? That's what it is. Okay. Um, okay, so this stuff is under events. So if we look in events, we've already looked at a lot of this mouse stuff, but we haven't looked at the keyboard stuff so much. So you'll see similar things like mouse is pressed, key is pressed, mouse X and key code and mouse Y are kind of similar. They just hold information for us. So key is pressed is a Boolean. It's either true or false. Um, although this doesn't seem to be running. Uh, Key is just the key that we just pressed. Key code is the numerical expression of that key, which I'll go over in a minute. And then key press, key release, key type, keys down. These are all functions that we can call like our mouse pressed and mouse clicked, all these functions over here. So it's very similar naming conventions, but we have like a different type of data, which is what key that we've pressed. So let's look at this first example and then we'll code it. So we can see here the text on the screen is just the current key is pressed value. And if I press a key, you can see that the value turns to true and the background of the sketch changes color. Whoops, I hit the full screen key by mistake. I should turn that off. Anyway, so this is pretty simple to write. Let's go ahead and write it. So I have my background, and key is pressed is just a Boolean value. It's either going to be true or false. And so we need to put it inside of a conditional statement. So we can say if, and then we have our conditions here, key is pressed. And notice the camel case there. We have 3 words. So we start with a lowercase letter, and then our second, second 2 words start with a capital letter. So that's our camel case. So if the key is pressed, let's just change the background color, just a simple example. So I'll make a background color that's pink. And the tricky thing with this is that it won't work unless I click on the canvas, because right in this P5 IDE, this part of the screen and this part of the screen are actually 2 different like HTML pages that are being displayed at the same time in one sort of container. And so if I play here, but I don't like move anything, obviously when I keep typing, it's just going to type over here. I have to actually click on the canvas, and then you can see I'm pressing different keys on my keyboard, and you can see that the color is now changing. So key is pressed is just going to be true or false, depending on what. So that's a good question. We're going to look at that in a second, but right now it's any key. So let's draw key is pressed. So key is pressed is just a true or false value. It's a Boolean value. Let's increase the text size a little bit. Okay, so it doesn't actually matter what key I'm pressing. It's just is any key pressed. So then if we want to know which key is being pressed, that's stored in either the key, uh, let's put this like over here, or the key code, uh, which we can show all of those. Okay, so if I hit A, you can see that key is pressed is true, the key is A, and the key code is 65. And then if I go to B, so you can see the key change, and it doesn't change back to anything. So once I hit B, the key value stays like that until I hit another key. So A and B. But A, this is, I have the key down, and I release the key, and the key is pressed becomes false. And then here, I'm holding B. You can see key is pressed is true. The value's B, and the key code is 66. And then I release. If I hit like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, period, comma, what is that? Quotation mark, semicolon, shift key, control, alt, meta key. Meta key is like either command or Windows key. Um, So yeah, the key is pressed just tells us if any key is pressed, so it doesn't matter which key it is. Um, so yeah, then we have the key to tell us which key it is. So we just saw an example of this, and in the reference, the key is right here. The key is going to be a key, but it's not the best one to use. So for example, notice if I hit A, the key is 65, and if I hit Shift A, the key is still 65, but Shift A gives me a capital A. So P5 is kind of assuming here that if I'm holding shift, the key should be the capital A, but the number hasn't actually changed. And so that's what you want to be careful about is that you can see if somebody's holding shift, and then you can also see if they're holding A, but you might want to sort of differentiate between them. So it's important to be aware of that distinction. And the way that I usually figure out what key code I'm looking for, there's this website called keycode.info. And I'll put this in the voice channel. Although Keycode got bought by this company called Toptal, so now it redirects to this Toptal website, and presumably eventually Keycode.info will disappear, and then I'll forget how to get here. But for now, at least, I can still get here. But anyway, if I hit an A here, it actually shows me a lot of information. And this is in JavaScript. P5 just kind of grabs this stuff from JavaScript, but all of this stuff is in just regular JavaScript. Um, so we can see when I hit A, the key is A, the key code is 65. And the other thing is that this is going to be true in all browsers on all computers, because 65 is just what A is in ASCII. If we click on this table, you can see the key code for all of these different keys on the keyboard is the same. And this is true across all computers. So it's better to use the key code because it'll be more consistent. But sometimes using the key name is easier to remember, what key you want to use. I don't know how to close this table. Maybe I go back here. No, that's weird. They don't have like a back button. Okay, I'll just go back on the browser. Anyway, if I hit space, you can see that's 32, enter is 13, shift is 16. So yeah, those are all the different keys. So that's a useful website to use. So once we know the key is pressed, we can change the color or change other things. But if we want to choose different colors or if we want it to be based on a certain key, then we have to use more conditions. So if key is pressed is just one condition. So if we want to have a specific key, then we have to add another condition in here. So after I ask if key is pressed, this is called a nested condition. Remember we talked about nested for loops last week. Nested just means it's inside of something else, like a bird's nest. Eggs are inside the nest. So a nested condition is just one condition inside the other. So I have if key is pressed, and now I'm going to ask again if key, and let's say key code, and I'm going to say triple equals 65. That's A. And usually, if I have a key code like this, what I'll do is I'll put just a little comment at the end so that I know, because I might not have the key codes memorized. So if I put an A here, that'll tell me that that's what that key stands for, or that's what that number stands for. So then I'll put my background color in here and run this again. And I have to make sure to click on the canvas. And now if I hit B, nothing happens. If I hit space, nothing happens. Enter, shift, any of my other numbers. But if I hit A, now I get my pink background. So I have two conditions stuck together. So if key is pressed and if key code equals 65. There's different ways to do this, and depending on what you want your code to be doing, there's different ways that are more preferable. So another way that I could do this, I'll just do it right here. I'll say if key is pressed. I can use a compound conditional here. So you may remember this from when we talked about conditionals way back in like week 4 or something like that. I can use a double ampersand, and that means both of these conditions have to be satisfied. So if I say key code equals 66, that's going to be B. And this line is getting a little bit long, so let's put this over here. So now I could say background is, let's say light blue. Okay, so now I have the A, that still works, and now I have the B, and that works as well. So either one of those is fine. You might be able to tell what the advantages are. So this is a nested condition. This is a compound condition. And you might be able to tell what the advantages are already. If I want multiple colors, notice with this one I have to repeat key is pressed. So if I want to add another color this way, I have to copy this whole thing, and I'll change this key code to 67, that's C, and I'll make a new color, let's say purple. Okay, so now I have A, B, and C. So when I use a compound condition, I have to actually repeat this bit of code. It's exactly the same here in here. The only difference is right here. So that's a little bit repetitive. The advantage with a nested condition, so if I'm doing just one, a compound condition is probably good because it's just this little block of code, whereas a nested condition is this big chunk of code. But if I'm doing multiple conditions, I don't want to repeat this part each time. So when I have a nested condition, I don't have to ask if key is pressed again because everything inside of this block only happens if key is pressed. So this first condition, as long as all of the following conditions have to, have to have this condition as well, it's better to use a nested condition here. So it doesn't really matter. If this is confusing, that's okay. You don't necessarily need to know what the best way to do things are. There's just multiple ways to do it. Anyway, so let's add another one here. I'll say if key code equals 68, which is my D key. Now I'll do a different background. And I'm just changing the background as an example. I could put any different type of P5 code in here. So let's change the background to orange. And just as an example, let's put a little rectangle in here. Let's say rectangle 100, 100, 100. So you can put any P5 code that you want to inside of these conditionals. I'm just using background because it's a quick example. Okay, so now we have A, we have B, C, and there's D. Okay, so adding nested conditions, I can just keep adding just simple key codes. Compound conditions, I have to repeat both sides of this compound condition. So, yeah, so that's how I can tie a part of my drawing or something that I want to happen in the sketch to a specific key, not just any key. All right, so let's continue. So we talked about key code. So let's keep going. Okay, so another thing that we can do is key pressed. And so we talked about the difference between different events when we talked about mouse X, mouse Y, and mouse pressed. And the difference is really just time. I don't have let's do a little web drawing pad I'll just do a little sketch. Oh, I'll use auto draw. Actually, that's kind of funny. This is like this Google thing that uses AI to guess your drawings, but I can just draw regular. I don't need to do that. So we have time. Oh, that's too big. Time. No, that's still too big. Okay. Uh, let's get rid of that. Okay, so there's time. Oops. And it starts at 0 and it just goes forever. So key is pressed or key. Once we set it, if it's like A, it's always going to be A until it becomes B. So we're dividing up time. This state is just changing all the time. The event, when we change, is here. So this is an event when we press the key. I'm just using a mouse, which is why this looks terrible. Okay, so we have A until we have the key pressed event, and then we have B going forward. So that's kind of the difference between my variables down here and my functions up here. Um, so let's add one in. And for this one, I'm going to play a sound. So we're going to take a little detour and get some sounds to use. But for this one, I'm going to play a sound because if I just drew a circle for a split second, we wouldn't really see the difference. So to use key pressed, uh, I just use the function key pressed, just like mouse pressed. So I'll say function key pressed. And then what we want to do is play a sound. So we're going to take a detour. We're going to download a sound and add it to our sketch. This is kind of like adding an image. It's almost exactly the same, except we're adding a different type of medium. So I'm going to go to this website called freesound.org. This is a really good place to find sounds that have Creative Commons licenses, so you know that you can use them without getting in trouble from the creator. So I'll paste a link to this in the voice chat. And this is completely free to use. The only thing is that you have to have a login. So hopefully I can remember my login. Maybe it's my email. Uh-oh. I thought I knew this. Maybe I'm just typing too fast. Huh. Okay. I'll send myself a reset link real quick. Oh, let me try one other thing, actually. There we go. Okay. All right. So with Freesound, once you log in, you can download stuff. You can actually preview and search sounds without a login, but if you want to download things, you have to have an account. So anyway, I'm going to search for a sound. I'm going to search for some chickens. And most of these sounds are things that like hobbyists, just like random people record and upload. But there's a lot of stuff on here. Usually I can find whatever I'm looking for. So let's go with this one. Let's preview this. That's pretty good. I like that. So I'm going to click on this. And this website is, it'll show me a lot of information about the sound. This person actually wrote a note that says you have to credit me. So this is under Attribution 3.0 license, which the nice thing about, again, about this website is I can just click on this and it'll take me to the Creative Commons license for this sound. Just have to get rid of all this crap. And it'll show me what the rules are. So I can share, I can adapt, but I have to give attribution and there's no other restrictions. So that's not so bad. I can just, say who created the sound in my project, which is easy enough to do. And then it tells me some information like this is a WAV file. That's good. It's 400 kilobytes, which is not too big. Sample rate is 4.1, which is decent. That's normal. Bit depth is 16. That's normal. So everything about this is good. So I'm just going to click download on here. I'm only sharing my browser, so you're not going to see my downloads folder. But one thing that, well, you'll see it when I upload it in a second. So I'm going to go back I'm going to save this link. So I'm going to copy this just like I did with my images and go back here. And I'm just going to put this in the comments for now. Chicken sound by. And I'm not like, really distributing this. This is just an example. If I was distributing this as like a, professional project or whatever, I would probably put more like I'd probably put the attribution like in the actual project or something like that. But for now, this is good enough. I don't know why this is something is weird with this formatting, but anyway, so I have my chicken sound, uh, and so I could load this actually from this URL, but just like we talked about with the images, if dir super Anton decides to take the sound down, then that URL won't work anymore. So I want to actually just upload it into my project. So I'm going to go over to my files area over here, and I'm going to go to upload file. And then I'm just going to click on here. This will bring up my computer's file system. And if I go to my downloads, you can see there's my chicken file there. And you can see the file names are usually pretty long. So it has like an ID number, the user, and then the file name. And so I'm probably going to change that just so I don't have a hard time remembering it. So that's fine. I can change the file name. That doesn't really matter. So I'm going to click open. It's going to upload. And so we'll get rid of this. And that file name is way too long, so let's rename it. So I'm going to click on this drop down, click rename. And I'll just like take everything out except chicken.wave. That's good. That's pretty easy. So then let's bring this back, or I'll just close this all together. So just like in using an image, I need to use the preload function. I want to make sure that my sound is completely loaded before I try to play it, because otherwise I might get an error. So I'm going to create a variable for this. It's called variable chicken sound, and I'm just initializing it. So when it starts, it doesn't have a value, but I need it to be global because I'm going to preload it, and then I'm going to use it inside key pressed. So then I have my function preload. So I need this anytime I want to load an external asset. I'm just going to say chicken sound equals load sound, and then the URL of the sound. So I didn't put it in a folder or anything, so it's just chicken.wave. It's right there on the main root folder. And so that's everything that I need to do to load the sound. That's pretty easy. And now if I want to play the sound, I'm just going to say chicken sound.play. And I'll go over some more stuff with sound on Wednesday, but this will be enough to get us started. So this should work when I hit play again. Now, if I press a key, I didn't ask what key it is, so it's gonna play the chicken sound no matter what I press. Um, so hopefully you guys can hear that. If you can't, I could hear it, so just trust that it's playing. Okay, perfect. I don't think it's going to be in the video. I'll set it up next time to be in the video, but so if you're watching this in the YouTube video later, you probably won't hear the sound. But anyway, it is playing. And so, yeah, so we have a sound now. Again, I'll go over more sound stuff on Wednesday, but I just wanted to set this up so we can look at our key pressed. So let's go back to our chickens. And we can also check the key code inside of our key pressed. So this doesn't just have to go in the draw function, it can go anywhere. So if we only want to play the chicken sound when we press a certain key, so I'll say if key code equals, and then what in the example I just used the space bar, which is the code 32. So then I'll put my chicken sound.play inside of that condition. And I'll put a note here. This is the spacebar. And so now, there we go. And one of the things that's nice, one thing that I'll show you guys real quick is that there's an easy function to check if my sound is playing. So you can see is playing right here, and we can make decisions based on that. So that's just like our is key pressed or is mouse pressed. We can use the sound to decide to show something. So let's actually put this outside of all of our background stuff. Let's just go down here and say draw if chicken sound is playing. So we just have a condition if, and then we have our chicken sound dot is playing. This one has parentheses at the end because it's actually a function that returns either true or false. So it has to like go into the chicken sound and check out a couple things before it knows for sure. So it's not just a variable like key is pressed or mouse is pressed, it's a function. So it has parentheses at the end. But it does the same thing. It's either going to be true or false. So if it's playing, I'm not going to draw a whole chicken, but let's just draw like a yellow circle. So I'll say fill is yellow, and let's say no stroke, and let's do a circle. Maybe I'll do a few circles. Let's do a circle at 200, 250, and then maybe I'll do, whoops, let's do one like over here. Let's do minus 25. I'll just do it like that. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so the sound is kind of long and it has a lot of pauses. So we'll make a better version of this on Wednesday, but you can see that it draws my little chicken only when the sound is playing. So when the sound ends, it goes away. Let's fill this text black. It, and so I can do both at the same time. So I can still change my background, but the chicken drawing will only show up as the sound is playing. And there's cooler things that we can do with sound, but for now, I think that's good. So let's see, I think that might be it. Yeah. So there's other functions like key released, so we can do more with our key presses. Let's look at the events page again. So yeah, I mean, we basically key pressed and key released. It's like obviously when I press the key and when I release the key. Key typed is like mouse clicked. You have to press and then release. And then key is down is like key is pressed, except it's a function for when you do. Oh no, actually key is down is something totally different. Keys down is actually pretty useful because you can combine your keys together, but I don't really use it because you have to use, oh no, it says you can use any. Okay, so actually that's pretty useful. So let's do one more example. So one thing that you can do to combine key is pressed and key code into one thing is use key is down. So if I say if key is down, this is a function that actually takes in an argument. So what was the last key that I used? It was D. So 68 is D. So 69 is E. And so let's do background is green. Okay, so if I hit E, so actually key is down is probably the easiest way to do this because you're combining key is pressed with the key code, but you don't have to write key is pressed or key code. So this is actually probably like the shortest way to do this, which is nice. But basically what we're saying is if key is down, and then we're actually telling it which key we are looking for, and then it tells us if that's true or false, and then we get the code as a result. So that's another good one to use. So there's a bunch of different ways we can do it. Oh, and if I play it multiple times, it's going to trigger multiple times. But we'll go over that more on Wednesday. Okay, so I think that's everything we need to cover with our keyboard. We'll continue with this and add some more stuff to it on Wednesday. I'm going to save this and I'll throw it into the voice chat. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording.